The 2023 Pittsburgh Maulers have been eliminated from the playoffs, losing in the USFL Championship game to the Birmingham Stallions. I attended this game. It was a great time, but as for this team, they weren't great. They were really bad. First and foremost is the team stats. Overall, the team got pretty much obliterated. Now, it wasn't the obliteration in the sense of the Breakers getting absolutely clowned on by the Stallions in the divisional round, but 28-12 is a pretty bad beating. Now, the important thing to note are that some of the stats really look at the Maulers very bad. The Maulers ended up beating the Stallions in time possession 33-50 to 26-10, basically. So they had a very distinct edge in TOP. Both teams only had 8 drives. Very few drives from both teams. Usually we see a lot of 11-11, 12-11 types of drives. This was 8-8. It's because there were a couple of drives, two by the Maulers and one by the Stallions, that were really long. In terms of total plays, you see that as well. The Maulers had 11 more plays, but despite having 11 more plays, they got beat by 150 yards in total yardage. And yards per play, absolutely crushed. 7.1 for the Stallions to 3.3 for the Maulers. Passing-wise, Stallions obliterated them by 100 yards there, despite having 6 less completions and 13 less attempts. Far better, literally 5.5 extra yards per attempt. And then turnovers, both teams fumbled the ball and lost it once, though the Maulers did fumble another time, but they didn't lose it. Then rushing-wise, the Stallions even beat them there by 50 yards and beat them in yards per rush by 0.7 on more attempts, so pretty bad. And then we get to the actual stats of the players. Let me just put it this way. After watching this game live, I can definitely say that I have gotten off the T-Will bandwagon. I heard a lot of people basically hating on him, saying he wasn't that good, and I'm like, well, compared to what you had, is he really that bad? And technically, he is a great quarterback for the Maulers, because, I mean, who you going to say was better? Vadley for like the one game he was good? What, Kyle Laletta? Roland Rivers? This team hadn't had any good quarterback. He was the first guy that actually played decent. So, I mean, he was their best quarterback, but is he going to win you a title after watching this? Definitely not. There were many times where he held onto the ball way too long and never threw it out, or when he tried to make a rush play, but it just completely whiffed it. And in overall stat line, even though he had a decent completion percentage at 64.9, his yards per attempt was horrifically low at 3.9, and a 72.2 passer rating when you didn't even throw an interception is really bad. Then you get into rushing-wise, and these are the only 2 guys that had more than 2 rushes. That's it. They didn't let London have like any carries. Groshek had one really solid 15-yard run, but once you eliminate that, that's 8 attempts for 20 yards. That's not good. So that's a pretty bad stat line. It's under 3 yards per rush. And then Troy Williams is very similar to that. You get rid of the 19 he had on his long, you get a lot less total yardage. You're talking about, a lot less. And in those attempts, did he do good? I mean, that's like about 6.5 yards a carry, which for a quarterback is just good. But when you only rushed 4 times, it didn't really matter that much. Then you look at their defense. The defense did a solid enough job. You're talking about the Stallions team that just obliterated the Breakers. And the Stallions were able to get 2 sacks, 3 TFLs, 3 pass deflections. But it wasn't enough. Chris Blewett was really the most consistent player on the team, except for maybe Tizzino. Blewett had a very solid day. He did miss 1 kick late in the game. But before that, he was 4 for 4, and he deserves no blame for this. The fact is that you shouldn't have to have 5 or 8 drives end in field goals and expect to win the game. That ain't going to happen. And because of that, the team lost. It's as simple as that. They couldn't score in the red zone like they struggled in a lot during the season, and it's just proof of what I said during the last couple of videos talking about the playoffs. The Maulers only made it to the championship game because of the Panthers. The Panthers had a dumb penalty on that final drive of the Maulers in regulation where they got the free first down in like the 3rd and 16 because of the PI, which gave them a free set of downs within 5 yards of the end zone, which is how they cashed in to get to OT after the Panthers kicked a game-tying field goal. They made it to the championship because of that. Because, yes, the playoffs, you could say, the OT, yes, you could say they won an OT. But for one, you had the fumble that, because of the rule, which I have said, yes, that is the rule. That's very known, that you can't advance the fumble in that situation. And the fact that Panthers also failed in the other attempt, the Maulers won. But the Maulers really only got to the title game, like I said, because of that boneheaded penalty. And they looked like it. They weren't the more well-rounded team at the game. During pregame, as someone who was there, you could see that they were the much more loose team. They were, just kind of happy to be there, whereas the Stallions were there to win. And the Stallions won. The better team won. It's a shame. I've become a, kind of bandwagon Maulers fan recently. They are now my second favorite team. But I will say they definitely were the worst team that day, and they are the worst team overall. I mean, congrats, Maulers. You got to the title game. But man, you guys really blew it in the game that mattered most. Your defense, they came up a couple of times to give your offense a chance. That fumble recovery they had was huge, and the Mars offense got them nothing.